Hi, everybody. We are back. Back indeed. Back on a home base. Traveling over the holidays is done, and frankly, I'm glad to be back here in my own studio. I hope you guys didn't mind my makeshift studio setup that I used to record this show last week, but I didn't think it sounded too bad from what I could tell. I couldn't hear it going out live, so I hope that it did work out. But we're back now. Continuing with, as I had said in last week, we are going to have some periods of reflection from the Church of the Hard Truths. And that means we have hard things to do this year, and probably for the rest of our lives, we'd like to hold on to some semblance of freedom in this country because it is constantly under attack. I don't have to tell you guys that, do I? What a week, eh? Well, we had, of course, January 6th happened. What a day. Nothing has ever happened in the country worse than that day. Never. Pearl Harbor, 9/11, Civil War, burning the Capitol in the War of 1812. Nothing could possibly prepare for that. And the Democrats, not only the congressional folk, some of whom weren't even there, who suffered outrageous psychic damage. As some of you know, the commentators, particularly on CNN and MSNBC, are never the same again. Our hearts must go out to them, and our prayers, although they don't want our prayers because they don't believe in anything to pray to. But if they did, we would still send our prayers to them. They're damaged. They are oftentimes, I understand, watching some of them crying uncontrollably. This Thursday, I'm certain that many of them were in their basements, curled up in a corner, sobbing silently into a small towel, just a remembrance of what happened. I don't like to diminish it. I think it was a dumb thing. I think that a lot of foolish hooligans wandered into the chambers of the Capitol without any idea about what they were going to do when they got in there, and it caused a lot of trouble, caused a lot of damage. So far, the only person that was actually killed was, of course, Ashley Babbitt, shot through the neck by a Capitol security guard. No, I won't call them police. I will not. I will refuse to call them. They're not police. I will let the rant continue. The police power resides within the executive. It's in the Constitution. The police power does not reside with the legislative. And it certainly doesn't resolve with the legislative in a way that the Speaker of the House, be it Nancy Pelosi, I know that gives everybody a shiver, or Kevin McCarthy or anybody else, gets to run their own private police force outside the power of the executive, so that things like FOIA requests and everything else that's aimed at executive agencies has no effect on them. It doesn't exist. They are not police. It is a bizarre, slow evolution from this origination as essentially security guards under John Adams, I believe, or is it John Quincy Adams? I think it was John Quincy Adams. That was established, and as time went by, and then they were given the designation of being peace officers, which should have been stopped right there. Someone should have said, how can you have peace officers that don't work for the executive branch? Cannot happen. Can't happen here either. I mean, in the state of Colorado, where I'm at, some of you are not. Many of you are scheduled all across the place. We are on KNZZ 1100, which goes a lot of different places, 50,000 watt AM, 980, KGLN, 101.8, several stations that are FM, and then, of course, other listeners that we are fortunate enough to have on the Internet, and those of you that download our podcasts, which is the show now, although I'm going to be adding some extra things off of, you can get it off Podbean, but you can just go to our website, Political Viking. That's right, politicalviking.com. You can still get there by saying therickWagnerShow.com or typing it in, but the Political Viking, because we are the disruptors. We are sailing our dragon boats right up the Potomac, and we are sticking our tongues out and dropping our trousers and wagging our rear ends at the Democrats. That will teach them a lesson they will not soon forget, I will tell you right now. And it's not insurrection. Nevertheless, they're not cops. Can't be. It's not. I do not understand why it has been allowed to go on this far. I have some ideas. I think the Republicans and the Democrats both, who could have challenged us at any time, like having a private police force. Wouldn't you? That run around at your beck and call to serve only you. I mean, My understanding is they've got, I think, 60 acres to be in charge of. There's something like 2,000 of them. They've tried to start offices now in 2 or 3 other states. Someone has to stop this farce. That or put them under an executive branch agency, even a terrible one like the Department of Justice has become, so you can at least have some kind of access to them. Now they're shielded from everything. We never even got the ability to find out who shot Ashley Babbitt until he came wandering out to, have his moment in the sun, being interviewed about it. We wouldn't have known. We have no idea what happened in terms of the investigation. We don't have access to anything really in the shooting investigation except the results say that there was nothing done. How can that possibly be satisfactory to anybody? It's beyond me. Anyway, many of them were also traumatized. They were also crying, if you remember their testimony. There's a lot of crying at the Capitol now, which is just what you want in leadership. All of you, of course, when you're in a difficult situation, things are going, kind of rough and you're looking to leadership, what you want is someone bawling over in the corner. Yes, that should be the person in charge. Yes. A terrified, crying, whimpering person who wants nothing more than to be a victim and then, to rouse themselves up and become a tyrant. The victim tyrant. This is the age of which we live. It's a strange thing that the victim tyrant has been created in our age, but we have it. We have people who adorn themselves as victims. They wear it proudly. They are helpless and victimized and marginalized and every other eyes that you can think of. Yet at the same time, they wish to dominate everyone around them through the use of their victimness. That is a strange thing in history, isn't it? I mean, I try and be a pretty good student of history, but some of you out there are probably better than I. Can you think of a similar situation? I cannot. It's one of the few times that I would say that we live in a, if not unique, at least somewhat unique time, where the crying victims are also the despots who try and crush everyone else's freedom. Now, maybe in the past, people who have been like this have been crying victims, but at least it's been in private. And then their anger and envy and desire for revenge manifests itself through despotic tendencies. But here, it all happens at the same time. I'm a terrible victim. I am unable to defend myself. It's horrible. I'm being treated badly. Off with your head. Those don't sound like congruent statements to me, but this is the time we live in. So enjoy it because it's unusual. And the next time someone says, may you live in interesting times, you'll see why that's such a bad thing most of the time. Anyway, so we had the insurrection celebration this week. Fascinating. There were some things that caught my attention that were perhaps a little different. One, I continue to have some level of concern over Adam Schiff's head. It actually looks somewhat bigger than it did before. It seems to be floating. Once again, anybody that can look at his head and not feel as though it is a face drawn on an overly stretched balloon, it just isn't looking hard enough. I expect it to burst at any moment. The lunging forward of the camera is at the same time. He has that Ichabod Crane way about him, sort of his scrawny neck and the large balloon head floating out there. I'm sorry to resort to anthropomorphic attacks, but, it has to be said. Everyone's thinking it. The other thing is, I'd like to point out that the delusional doofus who somehow wandered into the office of the president and convinced people that he was the president, Joseph Biden, Joe Biden, that's right. That's how I think he pronounces it. There's a couple of things there. One, and just purely as a helpful thing, the use of an orbital sander with 1,500 grit sandpaper is not actually a dermatological device. So buffing your face to that level of red shininess is not how that was intended. Just some helpful advice on my part. We'll be back with more advice like that for people in just a moment.